Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland. In this episode, we'll be reviewing the Traction Plus platform from the guys at Next Level Racing. With no less than 4 years of development time and manufactured by Motion Systems, it is finally ready for commercial release, promising a whole new level of immersion for commercial applications and the home sim racer alike. Time to put it through the SRG's review process and see how it does. So, let's get to it. Now for our closer look segment on the Traction Plus Motion platform. Right, so first off, let's talk about who makes this. Motion Systems actually is the manufacturer of this unit, or both the units, including the center module rather. They're also the same manufacturer that makes the V3 seat mover that Next Level Racing sells. And if you saw that review, then you know that it's built to a very high industrial type of standard, and this is no exception. In fact, this might be even more of an industrial type of build here. Everything is just so precise and easy to move. It's, this whole module is very heavy, this whole system here, but it moves, you can see just with my fingers pushing on it. How heavy is it? This thing is 100 pounds or 101 pounds, 46 kilos. So that's a pretty heavy unit. You're going to need a partner or a friend to help you move this around. And once you get it in place, you probably want to make sure you put it in the place that you don't have to move it very often, because obviously this thing's also sitting flat on the ground, so you can't get a jack or anything on it, and you can't lift on it from the module part. You have to lift on it from this frame part here. Speaking of which, this frame in the width department is 112 centimeters, or I think that's 44 inches. And yeah, so it's wide, but it's not as wide as it looked to me from the pictures or the videos that I saw. And you may have seen this unit in those videos. This is actually the demo unit from the E3 gaming convention this year, 2019. So I know there were some guys in there that did some videos actually being in it. So this is the same unit. So it's been through a lot of use. And yeah, so we'll see how it holds up under our use. I'm sure it will. This is, like I said, this is a really heavy duty piece of equipment here. And yeah, as soon as you grab this bar here that the cockpits are actually mounting to, you can tell it's just, wow, this thing is, yeah, no wonder it weighs so much. So, speaking of cockpits, we're going to use the GT Track cockpit from Next Level Racing because we're going to be using the V3 seat mover, because I want to see how the synergy works between these motion platforms, how it all comes together. And I'm sure they've got some profiles that take that into account, and we'll actually be using some of these profiles, I hope, to see how it works. What else are we going to talk about here? This is the same motors as this used in the V3 seat mover platform they have. But the transmission or the gearbox, the planetary gearbox, has a different gear ratio because of it's doing something a little bit different here, right? And we have 4 total motors, one here, and again, that's 4 motors powered at, I think it was like 351 watts of consumption of power, so something you might want to think about, or if you're interested in that kind of thing. Let's talk about some of the connections here. Yeah, let me get my close-up over here. And yeah, we have the power connection here. Now this power connection actually connects to the center module. We have another connector back over here, I'll show you in a second, that's for the mains for the house. We have a COM, and we also have a logic, also plugging in from our center module that we'll see in a little bit. Right, so there's the power switch down here. So I'll show you that real quick. That's where the house mains goes in. And of course, we can switch our power on and off with that switch. We also have a label on here. And I'll go and get that up a little bit closer so you guys can see it. And it's got the serial number and other pertinent information, and plus 16 on that. So you know that, well, you got to be 16 or older to be able to use this. So I hope they won't mind me using it. So anyway, yeah, not much else to say about this because, it's a closer look and there's not much to see on this frame. We do have some nice access panels though, and we got this cover on top here that I think I might be able to pull these end plates off and slide it out of the way and get a good look. Now I'm going to tilt this up. Now this is heavy, so just to show you what is different between this module and the rear module. They're identical except for this thing called a surge bar. I'm trying to tip that up a little bit, make sure I'm not going to go off the edge here, and show you what that looks like. And there it is. All right, we got a little bearing at the very top over the, let me get my fingers out of here, over on this section on the other side of the bar, and I'll show you that closer when we have it on the ground, just before we put the cockpit on. We'll be sliding things around and show you how it works, but because I'm kind of off here on the flat part. But as you might imagine, it rotates like this, and the surge bar keeps it from moving frontwards or backwards in relation to where the cockpit is. The rear one has a free floating bar like this, just like this, but it free floats into there. I'll show you some video of it there. So you can see it's just kind of floating around. So it does have the capability of moving forward or backwards, straight up, back and forth. So yeah, to keep that from happening, that's what this surge bar is for. Because they don't want that to happen, because that's going to throw everything off. So we got the surge bar, we've got our plugs. Yeah, there's not a whole lot left to see here. Max capacity on this, we'll talk about some numbers. 235 235 kilograms, or 518 pounds. That's the max capacity. We do have a 2-year warranty on these units, which I think is pretty much acceptable, and I don't think there's going to be any problems with the metal parts on it, because they're built so tank-like, very, very sturdy. What else are we going to talk about? Yeah, I guess that's about it. You know, the dimensions and what we can put on here, 518 pounds. I think that's pretty good. Now, also, I'm going to actually experiment with a piece of profile. I'm sure that we can mount other cockpits to this, as long as we keep the length, you know, between these two modules, the front and rear module, the same. We should be able to mount other profiles, other cockpits, and I keep thinking profile. Yeah, I'm going to put a piece of profile here and see how it works. But yeah, with some corner brackets in here, I think that would work pretty well. And yeah, so other than that, I don't have much else to show you here on the closer look on this module. So we might as well get on with the look inside. Okay, so you can see me back here behind the frame. I have that front cover off that was covering the motor section and all that. I went ahead and took that off, slid it out. And yeah, now we can actually see what's going on here and how this works. First off, here's that bar. Obviously, we're attaching the frame here, or the front of the frame, because this is the front module. And it kind of floats on these two bearing rods. All right, and I'm going to turn this sideways very carefully, as not to tip it over and not to hit my tripod legs. There we go. I think you guys get a pretty good look at it there. So that's, you see that we got these two very large, it looks like there's Delrin inside of here, or some kind of, yeah, some kind of hard nylon plastic stuff. It must be Delrin. I'd have to say that's what it is. And it's clamped onto this very substantial bar right here. And as this rotates back and forth, of course, as we're doing left and right slides, you can see that it just kind of rides up and down. Very, very slick. I mean, this has no friction at all in it. I mean, it just falls back down just by me letting it go, just from the weight. And it depends on which way I have this sliding part of the module oriented. Now, there's bars in there also doing the same kind of thing, but I am going to show you this part first, and then I'm going to take some access doors off and we'll check that out. But yeah, very nicely done here. This is just heavy duty everywhere you look. These huge thick plates here holding these things together, and we got a very thick plate on the back here. In fact, let's go ahead and figure out just how big these plates are, or how thick they are. So yeah, again, this is being built by Motion Systems, so you'd have to think that, yeah, this is a substantially built piece. So that's 4.3, there we go, millimeters thick, these bars here. We also have a bar back here that is probably the same, I'm thinking. Yeah. Oop, get a good measurement here. Yeah, it's about the same, 4.3. And that bar is actually supporting, it's spanning all the way across here, and I'll show you. Try to get it moving around very carefully. Got to be careful. That's the last thing I want to do is dump this off my cart, as you might imagine. And there it is. There we go. Getting the light, and we have some. Actually, this is some air ports in here for breathing, so the motors inside can breathe. And yeah, spanning the whole section here. This is all one piece of metal. It goes up here, it goes under this bar, and that's the top part of it there. There's the bottom part of it down there, and it comes all the way out and wraps around the corners over here before it actually, I believe it stops there. Yeah, I think it stops there. So that's the main support beam for everything. And if we continue to go around here, we'll show you the other side. Again, with those, what I'm thinking are Delrin bearings riding on that bar there. And we have a bar down here. You can't really see it too well, but I'm going to try to get these access doors off so that we can actually see them better. But yeah, and of course the whole thing slides on that. If I push it over here, there we go, slides on that. Now it's not sliding as easily because obviously we have it weighted sideways and it's not designed to be built that way. It wasn't designed to slide that way. So back around the front, and I got some B-roll here I'm going to show you on these motors. And we have two motors here that are, again, the same motors that are in the V3 motion platform that Motion System makes. And yeah, we have the planetary gear on top, and you can see there's a coupler in there, and that is actually connecting both motors together, so they're working together in sync. I wasn't sure if there's a separate motor for each belt, but it looks like they're kind of connected so they stay in sync with the belts on each one of these top and bottom tracks. And again, yeah, one more thing I want to show you is the cooling fans they have here. Very nicely set up cooling fans. You can see from the inside there, that's where I'm not sure if it looks like it's blowing in, yeah. It's blowing in because you can see the labels from the fan are pointing inwards, and usually that's the direction of flow for like computer fans. These are 50 millimeter fans, and yeah, plenty of ventilation here for this, though. I like the way this is designed. And I'm noticing there's not a whole lot of dirt in there. We got some nice heat shielding from being run so long at the E3 gaming convention. So yeah, it looks like a good solution there so far. Yeah, heavy duty built everywhere we look. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to lay this flat and take some of these access panels off and take an inside look at that. And yeah, that'll probably be it. So we'll get to that part next. So continuing on in our look inside, I've pulled the access doors off the middle parts of this module just so I can show you guys the other end of it and how it's working. As you can see, we have a toothed belt here riding on a pulley, and we also can see the back end of our motor back here. And we have two bars here. All right, so we have a pulley that's riding on those two bars, and I'm going to try to turn this so you guys might be able to see that. There's the pulley. All right, now, so you can see the pulley is right here that's riding in between these two bars. We also have two bearings, sealed bearings, that are keeping it centered on the top bar there. So when I'm moving this, of course, it's going to disappear when I pull it. And you can see how it is working. All right. So that's how it stays so smooth in its movements. So a very good design. Now we can't see the other pulley coming in on this side over here until I actually can make it go this way so you can see in there a little bit. It actually has a stop on top of its assembly. As I pull this over here, you'll see that stop come into the picture. There it is. And it's going to hit this big, thick metal assembly here. And that's the stop. All right, so, and we can't really see the pulley because it's set back further from this little stop piece here. And as I push it back, you'll see it recede again, and then we'll see the other pulley come back into the picture. There it is. Oops, let me get that around there so you guys can get a better look at it. So there it is. That's how it's working. It's riding on these two bars. We've got a pulley, and then of course two bearings, like I showed you a second ago, that are capturing this top bar. There's not anything on the bottom, just to keep everything centered. So yeah, I like what I'm seeing there. And if I go down here on the other access panel I pulled off, we're going to kind of travel down to the end here, and you can see there's another pulley down here. And every time we move it, obviously that's moving the belt there too. So these are maintenance access panels, of course, so in case we have to lube the belt or anything. On their site it says you don't have to do that, so I'm just have to go with that. Now I'm actually going to swivel this around for you, and we'll take a look at the other side, which is the same thing. You can see the power button there. I didn't pull that off. There's no sense. This is actually riveted on. Some of these sections are riveted so you can't see anything, but the middle part wasn't. All right, get that close in here without bumping my camera. And there's really not a whole lot to see here. It's just, again, the belt. You can see the pulley down there as it's moving as the module moves, and the same thing's happening with the pulleys back here. And of course we have a circuit board with the logic plug and the COM port and we have the mains piece right there. That's where we're going to be plugging in the control panel to. So again, not much to see here. There is a little, it's not the cleanest thing in here, but after 3 days at the E3 gaming convention and using it nonstop, it actually looks pretty good, I think. All right, so yeah, that's about it for the look inside. Now we can see how this is working. We saw on the other look inside segment how the motors are coupled and the cooling fans and things like that. So yeah, I like this design. And on this, you guys can't see this because I can't get it up to where you can see it, but on this circuit board here, it says Motion Systems. Again, assuring us that this is a Motion Systems construction right here, and it sure looks like it because everything is just so thick and beefy everywhere here. It's just, yeah, 100 pounds of worth of beefiness. Right, so what we'll do next is move on to the actual control module that goes in between these two drive modules, I guess I could call them. Now for a closer look at the actual controller module. This is where the circuit board will be, the power supply and things like that. Now, first off, I'm going to tilt this up so you guys can see this. It has a frame in it. You can see these ribs running through the frames, outside, inside, down here, and of course around there, and forming through here. All this is the 4.3 millimeter steel. So a very stiff connection. So remember, this is actually an integral part of the whole module system. So once we have the motion modules bolted onto these sides, and they bolt on through these flanges here. I'll give you a little close-up on one side there. Yeah, so we got 2 screws, obviously, that are going through here and going to go into the motion modules. So it forms part of the whole assembly of the chassis, so it makes it more rigid. And yeah, this stuff is so substantial, just like the module over there that we looked at, the closer look and inside look in the front module. This stuff is just so substantial and tough, very commercial-like, something that's meant to be used and abused in a hostile environment, if you will. Right, so not much to see here, really. I'm going to give you a close-up of the front panel here. Let's see, which way am I going? There I am. And we can see here that we have some LEDs that are going to indicate to us whether or not our power is on, and we have the right and the left channel. This is actually where the computer USB connection is going to be made. And we have an M bus that's probably for some programming or accessories or something like that. Might even be able to daisy chain something else off of this through that M bus. Turn this around, and we have wires on each side. And I'll show you guys there. Get closer here. We have if you saw the closer look on the front module, the motion module, you'll see that they had the Molex plug, and they call this the logic plug, which actually has the signaling and some power in it. And we have an RJ45 COM, which is some kind of communication bus between the front and rear modules, I would imagine. Nice ferrite cores on everything to keep our EMI down. We have a power cord on this side, and if you remember, on the front module, it had an outlet for a power plug, just like this one. And that's so that we can get power. Actually, it's just a straight power path through the front module into this plug, like a regular mains connection. And we'll plug this in through this hole down here into the front module once we have it mounted. And these plugs are going to do the same thing. They're going to come through here and just plug into the module. Right. Also, we have the same thing on the other side, so no sense, except for we don't have a power plug, because again, on the other side back here, we actually have the same thing, what they're calling their logic plug, has power wires in here that are sending power over to the motors. So we don't have a regular mains plug going back there. And we have a loose ground wire back here that we're actually going to put through a little hole. In fact, let me spin that around, show you that. We're going to put that through a little hole in the back here and attach that to one of the screws on the back module for grounding. A lot of grounding wire in here. Plus, once we do the look inside, we'll probably see more in there. And again, we've got our 2 plugs here, the RJ45 and the Molex 8-pin called the Logic. I'm going to turn this back around, and I noticed when I was looking at this that the label on this thing, I think I'll go up to the close-up camera for this. See if we can read it or see it. Let's see, we'll get the bright light off of it. Get a little closer here without hitting anything. There we go. So you can see it has a serial number on it, some other numbers, also a manufacture date of May 2019, ages 16 plus, and of course the Motion Systems logo there. And it says Traction Plus CM, and I'm pretty sure that it stands for control module because that's what this is. Okay, so yeah, that's all for the closer look on the module. And what we'll do next is see if we can pull this cover off and have access to the inside and see what kind of controller board or power supply they have inside of this. So we'll get to that next. Now for a look inside of the center module or controller module. And what we're going to do is take the top off very carefully. I already have the screws out. And you can see that there's actually some wires there for these fans. There's actually two 50mm fans in the bottom there. So I'm just going to kind of flip this tray this way and carefully, we have a ground wire also attached to it. Carefully lay it down, and you can see our two 50mm fans right here. I'll do a close-up on one of them. Well, I guess I can get two of them in there. And you can see that the stickers are pointing inwards, so it usually means that we're pulling air from the outside because airflow is typically towards the sticker on most fans. And again, 50mm little computer case fans. Now, I'm going to tilt this up so we can see what's going on here. I'm going to move it back a little. Now, the reason I don't just unplug the fans is because, well, you can't unplug them. And I'm going to show you in the close-up look here. I guess we can see that one over there. You can see that there's actually a, well, let's do this one over here because it's closer to me. Here. There's actually a block down here. See this little green block? And so these wires are actually screwed down into that block instead of just a plug sitting on the circuit board. Typically, we'll see this in commercial quality builds because they don't, you know, it's just an extra safety measure that it will never come out if you screw it down on the block. Now, we can also see we have some very large heat sinks here, and we have two of them. Obviously, they're on the power part of the circuits, sitting on probably some power transistors, I would imagine. And so, yeah, these fans down here are blowing air on top of the heat sinks. Nice configuration, very clean. We have some 50-volt, 2200 microfarad capacitors for each side of the circuit. So one of these is the front motor, and one is for the back motor. And of course, we have a power supply up here. You can see that. This is a Meanwell industry standard. It's an RSP32024, and its output is 24 volts at 13.4 amps max. So there we have the power. You can see we got grounding everywhere here. So yeah, they may have had noise concerns, and again, commercial builds usually see lots of like this ferrite sink here. You see that one there, and we got another one over here. Yeah, it's, you know, we have them on the cords. So I imagine this is going to be a quiet experience for most people as far as noise and EMI interference. Anything else we want to talk about? There's a close-up of the circuit board. Not a whole lot to see there. We'll go ahead and push it. I'll pull it this way so you can see it the other side, but also get a little closer look. Again, very well done from Motion Systems, as you would expect. All of this frame here is very thick. It's the 4.3mm steel, and that's obviously because this center module is going to form an integral part of the whole platform once we bolt it together. So, yep, it's going to be a stabilizing part of the platform. Just one piece once we bolt together. Even though we're only using 4 6mm or M6 bolts on each side of it, it's still going to bring everything together and tie it up. So it should be a solid unit. Right, so there's not a lot more to see here, as you can, obviously. So what we'll do next is just go ahead and start assembling this thing. I can't wait to get this put together so we can finally get the cockpit put on that we're going to put together. And yeah, get this thing going. So we'll get to the assembly of the two modules, the motor modules or motion modules, to our controller module next. So now we're ready to connect the control module to our front and rear motion modules. And I've already got some pieces of wood under here. And the reason I did that, this control module actually sits a little bit higher, about a 1/4 inch, you know, maybe 5 mils off the floor. So it doesn't actually contact the floor. It just connects these two guys here. Now, of course, it's doing a couple of things here, the control module rather. It's keeping these guys lined up as far as this way, right? The lateral way. so we know that we're straight. And so these things will be synced up where they need to be as far as where these chassis are, and also giving us the correct spacing between the two motion modules so that everything syncs up with the firmware or the software, however they calibrated it in there, so you don't have to recalibrate. So it's not that big of a deal. I mean, you probably could just lift this up and do the screw at the same time, but I chose to do it this way because when you're shooting video, sometimes you just have to do things a little differently. And what I have here is some M5 bolts that are going into these holes here, like you saw. If you saw in the closer look or look inside, you actually saw the screws, maybe the bolts hanging out at that time. And I'm actually going to just go ahead. I've got everything lined up, and I'm using some wedges here, these wood wedges, because that allows you just to push it back and forth until you get the right height to put these in. So we'll go ahead and see if I can get one of these guys to go in here. And sometimes you might have to just still shake, move this a little bit, take some pressure on and off of it to get it going. I'm kind of just hook my fingers under there and just kind of wiggle it. And it also helps to have your wrench handy and see if that'll help you get it going. It's hard to do it sometimes with just fingers. It can be a little odd because because I'm shooting video here. It's a little odd. I would definitely not be doing it this way. If I was just lining it up, I would be on this side, obviously. So I know I'm loose over here on the bracket, so that should allow this bolt just to go in there, and it is. And if you feel the thing getting too tight, then you know that you got a problem. You're not lined up somewhere. Let's go ahead and actually I'm going to pull this back just a hair. There we go. And I'm going to start this other one. I like to start all 4 of them at the same time before you tighten all this up. You don't want one side tight and then go over here and see things need a little bit more wiggle room to get them started. And again, this ball wrench that I'm using, hex wrench that I'm using, is worth its weight in gold because I'm off angle here, following the contour of the side plate, and still able to get in here and access that hex. I'm going to pick up on this a little bit. I'm not crazy about the tension I'm having to use to get this one in. In fact, I don't like it at all. So I'm going to pull it back out. And it looks like I got plenty of room here. It goes in the hole pretty well. But I'm actually going to pick this up and shove this, bring this out just a little bit more, this wedge. Make sure I'm lined up front and rear. Yeah, it's moving around pretty good on it. Yeah, last thing you want to do is strip these threads out. That would be a bad thing. And there we go. So you just got to move it around a little bit sometimes, and then it's easy enough to get them started. And so I'll go ahead and kind of wiggle this one around. I've already got a wood wedge over here you cannot see, and I'll see if I can get one of these guys going. And this wedge seems to be a little bit short too, so I'm going to push it in a little bit, try to get a little bit more height on it. See if how that works. And that works a treat. Yeah. So once we have this side started, I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Yeah, these are going in real well. In other words, I'm not going to tighten up this side until I get this side started the same way, and I have these screws at about the same length inserted, and then I'll go ahead and tighten, kind of rotate the pattern just like we always do when we're torquing things down. And then I'll just rotate around until everything comes together. And yeah, that's what we'll do. So when we come back, we'll actually be tightened up and take a look at how all that lined up and make sure everything looks good. So we're back with the control module securely attached between the two motion modules. And we also went ahead and connected all of our wires up on the front and back. And here's a shot of the back. The ground wire is very important here. You want to make sure you don't forget to put that on. You might get some EMI noise. There might be all kinds of problems if you don't do that, which are hard to actually isolate and troubleshoot. Also, you want to plug in your logic plug, and of course, we'll plug in the RJ45 COM plug, or communication plug as they call it. And on the other side of the module over here, we actually have that power lead. Don't forget that one. that needs to be plugged into, and you can see me here, I'm plugging it into the front motion module and then going and securing the COM wire and getting that plugged in. And then last but not least, we'll be plugging in the logic plug. And yeah, now that we have all that complete, now it's just a matter of getting the cockpit. Well, before we do the cockpit, I'm going to actually put a piece of profile on here and see how the corner brackets line up, and just kind of an idea of what it would be like to actually mount, if I was going to mount a 80/20 or aluminum profile cockpit on here. So yeah, I just wanted to mock that up real quick and show you guys that. And then once that's done, we put the adapters that come with this kit for the GT Track cockpit that Next Level Racing also makes. And once we have the adapters on, I'll show you how all that works. Actually, I'll end up showing you the adapters as we usually do close up before we actually install them. So yeah, it's coming along pretty nicely now, and I can't wait to get this thing up and running. So here we are, ready to put our adapter brackets onto the motion modules. Now I'm at the front module, and I'm going to be using this adapter bracket here. And you can see it has 6 holes in it on the top part there that actually match the 6 holes that are in the bar that we're mounting to, that actually moves. And we're going to use some M8 socket cap head bolts here, and they have a 6mm hex head on them and some washers, and these are 20mm actually long. And this bracket actually is the same metal that this whole section is made of. Very, again, industrial 4.2mm thick steel. And we're going to be mounting our actual cockpit to the ends of the bracket, and the cockpit will be going towards the back there. This angle here is actually pointing to the rear. So we've got 2 slotted holes here that we're going to be putting some more M8 bolts in once we get the cockpit set down here. So pretty easy to do here. Not much to it really, just need the 6 M8 bolts that obviously come with the set here, and just get them started with your fingers. And this goes in really well. Everything matches up very, very well. You know, it's just, again, a commercial kind of assembly here. It just goes in. Everything just lines up like it should. And I'm going to make a little noise while I tighten these up. All right, now I'm going to torque them down a bit. And you can feel when they're tight enough, I think. So you don't want to over tighten them. Although this is pretty heavy duty stuff. It's not going to be easy to strip one of these out, I don't think. There we go. There we have it. So that was pretty easy. And yeah, now we have our front adapter bracket. Now remember, there's also different adapter brackets available for this, or going to be, not yet. And they're just still, Next Level Racing told me that they would be having some other adapters that would fit this pattern here. And I'm sure one of them is going to be an aluminum profile type of bracket, because I'm sure there's a lot of guys already thinking, as I am, that you could put your profile rig on here also, and just, yeah, if you had a right bracket, you could even adapt something like some angle aluminum, I'm sure, to make this work. So yeah, what we'll do next is move over to the back bracket and get that secured. So now we're ready to attach the back frame adapter to the rear module, of course. This one's shaped a little bit differently because of how it holds the frame. We actually have some little square pieces in here that we actually are going to be putting a bolt all the way through that channel, obviously, and put a nut on the other side. Again, same thing as it was on the front. It's just 6 of these M8 20mm long bolts. Everything lines up very well. And yeah, this part is easy, actually. Because they're not real heavy. The modules are pretty heavy to move around. If you have to move them around a lot and you're by yourself, if you have somebody to help you, it's not so bad. We'll go ahead and tighten these down. All right, now again, we're just going to give it a little tighten. Not too much, just enough that I feel confident that this will not come loose. I have to say, this is a very slippery one on the back because it doesn't have that surge bar that the front piece has. We talked about the surge bar in the closer look segments. So yeah, this one can actually roll all around. I already showed you guys that, but yeah, this is a free floating. It can do pretty much what it wants, over here. Now I also noticed that this side is actually can move for the angle adjustment, but this side does not stay stationary. Right, so we can't get any surge this way because the surge bar on the front will keep that from happening. So we're done. Yeah, we've got the adapter set up now. All we have to do now is get the cockpit, and we're going to put some covers on that cockpit, and I'll show you what those look like. If I stop making all these clanking sounds. And the covers are for keeping you from stepping, or someone else from stepping into the cockpit or dropping something in the cockpit. And they actually go between the actual cockpit frame. And yeah, that just keeps things from dropping down. And yeah, we just got a couple of bolts on each side for this unit. And once we get the cockpit over here, then I'll actually show you guys how I'm putting that in. I have the GT Track cockpit mounted now to the two modules. I have it secured in the front, but I don't have it secured in the back yet because I want to show you guys this. There is a crucial measurement to be done here, and that is between the center of these module bars, the centers from the front to over here has to be 1160 millimeters. So I have it on 1160 millimeters in the middle here and over there, and yeah, it looks good. But if I was putting on another cockpit, say a profile or something, I would have to keep that in mind, obviously, when I'm setting up the profiles, how long I want those profiles to be, even though I do have a little leeway there with the connecting profile in the back and in the middle. But yet, you want to make sure it's 1160. Again, not so crucial here because obviously they're using the GT Track cockpit and these brackets are made for this, so they line right up. And all you have to do, once you have it lined up, let's take a look here. And this thing moves pretty easy, this bar, as you know. So it's easy to kind of just wiggle it around a little bit and get your bolts started. Yeah, not much to it. And we're going to have actually 2 here and 1 back here. So we're going to have 6 bolts by the time we're done. Get this other one over here in this back part of the chassis. Right, so all we got to do is get this bolted up, and then we're going to come back and put the protective covers inside on the inside part of the cockpit and see how that looks. So the covers for the cockpit are installed, and these again are keep things from falling down into the lower portions so that nothing gets caught up in the actual motion modules and the bars floating around over there. The front one is the biggest one that goes under the pedal tray, which kind of makes sense because when you put your feet up here, a lot of times, you know, you'll have dirt on your shoes and it's dropping down in here. And yeah, it's probably a good idea to have that. And how we mounted this was, this actually mounts on the outside. The lip fits on the outside. And we got 2 bolts, one here and one here. And of course, on the other side, we'll have 2 bolts also. We also have 2 bolts for the lip that actually attaches to this piece of the frame. And those are just little 15 millimeter M8 bolts used to secure this cover. And on the back here, it's a smaller cover, obviously. And of course, you can see over here, we have the 2 bolts installed there, and we have them installed over here on this side. Simple enough. You know, it wasn't that hard to get these in once the cockpit was sitting here. So now we're just going to snug up the covers, and then really we're done with the module part, or rather the Traction Plus part of this install. And really it's just building the cockpit now and get everything connected as far as wiring it. But I'm not going to show you guys me building the cockpit and putting the V3 motion platform in the back, because that's in another video that I've already done before, and that was my review on the Next Level Racing GT Track cockpit. So if you want to see how that's done, you can go check out that video that I did a few months back, I think. So yeah, when we come back, we're going to have everything put together, hopefully, and ready to drive. So yeah, we'll see that when we come back. All right, we've got the cockpit finally assembled, and you can see that we have the GT Track seat, and I'm going to probably change that out later on. I have some more comfortable seats that I like, but we're going to run this for now. And you can see it sitting on the V3 seat mover solution from Next Level Racing also. A very nice refined seat mover solution. Very compact, and you guys have seen a review on that already. And the only thing about it is does raise the seat up off of this cockpit quite a bit. It's about 6 to 7 inches higher than normal if you were just sitting the seat down on the frame. You can see it there, which required me to do this. There we are. And that is actually these are 10 series, so they're two 2020s stacked on top of each other. And yeah, so that's about 6 inches of lift there, plus the 1010 that's on top. And I've done this before in other cockpits to try to get the pedals a little more level with the seat, even though they're far from being level with the seat. But yeah, this gets that truck driver position. If I didn't have that in there, yeah, it just wouldn't feel quite right to me. So just something that I have the tools and the equipment to do, so I do it any chance I can. We're going to be running the SimiCube 2 Pro, a very nice wheelbase, as you guys know already, if you've seen the review on that. And I'm experimenting with a quick release from NRG right now. This is a ball bearing type of quick release. Very beefy though, and so far I can detect no flex in it, but we'll keep testing that. Anything else? Well, I guess that's about it. You can see the monitor, my monitor stand, which is on wheels, just barely clears the sides of the pod. Now remember, the pod width is around 1120 millimeters, inclusive of those socket head bolts that stick out. So yeah, just barely making it. It's kind of off angle right now, but yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to change that. There's enough things that you have to mod when you're trying to put custom things together. And yeah, overall, we're looking good here. And you can see the lights, by the way. These LED lights are blue right now. You can actually change those in the software. Any different color you want, pretty much. And anything else we're going to talk about here? And I guess that's it. Looking good. And what we'll do next is get in and talk a little bit about the software that runs this platform down here. And actually, the software is integrated, of course, with their seat mover, the V3. So we have it all now together in one package, which is kind of cool, I think. But yeah, next we'll just go ahead and get into the software application that controls all this and see what our options are there. So here we are in the Next Level Racing application or configuration application that runs everything for us. And the default screen you see here is called Profiles. And that's where all our profiles will be located for different games that we have on our computer. I've got Dirt Rally and Dirt Rally 2.0, Assetto Corsa, iRacing. Let's see what we got. We got Project Cars, Race Room, R Factor 2. So yeah, it's recognizing all the games that I have in the computer. And yeah, so you can just click on it and go to work. Or you can hit it and it'll actually bring it up. If you have Steam running and your client running, it'll just activate the game and off you go. Now I'm going to click on this and look at the screens that we have. I'm going to start with the top one here, Motion. Now, before we get there, let's go over here to the left. This is where you do your profile management, if you will. And this is where you can save and rename, clone, export, things like that. Export, which is save. And keep your profile squared away. So in case something happens, you can always go get one that you saved. Now, over here on the right, we have different windows for the different things going on with this system. And of course, the software here sees all the devices on the system. Now, the first one is Motion. Now, that's the V3 motion seat. I'm not going to go over this because we did a review on that a while back and we covered it extensively there. And SFX, I'll touch on that briefly. That's wheel slip, rev limiter, and limiter frequency bias. I usually take both of these guys and put them on 0 because the rev limiter has it where it bumps you in the seat. It shakes the seat when you hit the rev limiter, and it's just one of the things that I really do not like. Some people like it. I totally don't like it, so I turn that off. Wheel slip intensity, I just leave that alone usually. Right. Let's get to the good stuff. Oversteer, understeer, and that controls our Traction Plus platform. And it's pretty self-explanatory. I really like this interface because it's, we got basically four sliders that we're going to be messing with. I mean, we do have a couple down here, but we'll get to those in a minute. But this is where we can do our intensity for understeer, oversteer, lateral G-force, and turning effect. So you have to play with these to really get an idea of what they're doing. Of course, understeer effect intensity, that just is how it moves sideways in a lateral direction. And the lateral G-force is kind of the same thing. You can bounce in between these two to get the sway where you want it to be. Now, I've got them at 0.75. It defaults to 1. I'm going to use the understeer slider as an example. It comes in at 1 out of the box. And it's a little bit too active for me. It didn't feel like the way I wanted to. And I had a couple of guys over here testing with me, and, when I was doing all this review here and all the testing that we do, and they kind of agreed. Less is more sometimes when it comes to motion. I know when you first get something like this, you want to turn this puppy up and see what this baby can do. But after a while, after you get the wow factor over, what it can do, then you tend to tune things down a little bit, turn it down. So then we're trying to make it feel like we think we should be feeling, or the effects that we should be feeling when we're actually in a real car and going around a circuit. So yeah, less is more for me here. Of course, everybody's different, and it's completely subjective. But this is where I ended up. I just put everything on 75, and I may have tweaked maybe 70 and 73, somewhere in there on something. But I think 75 was a good balance, and everybody that came over that got a chance to use this and try it agreed that it was much better than if you went up to 1. And it doesn't stop at 1, by the way. You can actually take this up to ludicrous 2.5. Yeah, that's a bit much. And again, when you first get it, you might want to do that just to see what this machine is capable of doing. Right. Oversteer intensity, same thing. How it feels, how fast and quickly it moves to the oversteer. If it moves too fast, it gets just a little jerky. And again, smooth is better here. And I think the best word was used was it just felt natural. A couple of guys just said, look, it just feels natural when I get into an oversteer condition. And then when I correct for the understeer and it snaps into the oversteer, it just felt like a natural transition as if you were in a real car. So, and it does, this platform really does a great job at this. Right, so yeah, those are the main sliders that you'll probably be playing with. And we also have turning effect pivot point, and of course it tells you a balance between rear and front pivot points. At 1, it's the pivot point's all the way at the front. That's where I left it for yaw, because typically that's what you want for a good yaw sensation. But you can play with that if you like and bring it down and make that pivot point move. You can go all the way to the middle, so it's just twisting, I guess, when you get into an oversteer. And I play with it a little bit, and I didn't really care for it that way. I went right back to the 1.0 because I'm used to that. I've been in a seat mover with a yaw section in it, or a feature in it, and yeah, it was always pivoting, and it just felt a little more natural that way. Anyway, so we also have a low speed threshold, and that's kind of like just going to iRacing and force feedback is off when you're in the pits or something. So you don't want these effects, this platform, to be moving all around if you're just going slow and trying to test something. Or maybe you do. So, it all depends. And of course, you can actually put that all the way up to 100 kilometers if you want it, and it defaults down to 20. In half units, it'll move. Right. There we go. Right. So let's say that's not enough tuning capability for you. You're a tweaker. You want to spend some time. You want to dig deep into the software. Well, we can do a lot more here. We can go to motion processing. And that's some filters that we can actually do some curves modifications to make things a little bit more aggressive, a little more choppy, or quick if you want. I just found that it was a little bit jerky when I tried to play with this too much. Right now, we'll use sway post-processing. The linearity of this is at 6.0 right now, and you can see we have a straight line. There's a red line superimposed on top of our gray lines. And if I move this to the left, that will actually change the curve. You can see that. If you guys ever did any RC flying with radios, you can do the same thing with them to eliminate some bad behaviors in your rudders or the different control surfaces you have. Same kind of thing here, theory. So let's say I'm moving this up to, let's go down to 3, and you can see the red line is moved up and down up here. So what that means is, and it's a shame we don't have a graph over here giving us, the power as it goes up. But down here, it's more of a smooth start. It's just linear. It just keeps going up, and there's no spike to the feel, or no change in the way it feels as far as the power coming on. Here, I've moved it, so now it's going to be nothing. It's not going to feel like much at all until we get up to this point, and then it's going to come on stronger than it would have down here, right? So again, this gives you the ability to tweak how these motors are coming on, how quick they come, the duration of the force, and how much force they're putting on. So you can change all that. Then you can actually go down. Let's say I changed it to this curve like that. Okay. And I go down to the gain, and I can actually change the gain on it also. So it's actually modifying my curve a bit more. You can see it actually stays the same, the curve does, but it's going past the line on the other side. So I can mess with that. Or let's say I did my linearity curve there, 2.94, and I go to 9, you know, I can't get it exactly where I want it here because it's moving around too much on me. Well, that's what the offset's for. I can actually come down here, and this will actually move it very, very little. By moving the slider a long ways, it doesn't move that much. So this is where you really get to the fine tuning of what you wanted as far as the feeling that you wanted to get. I left this alone because I felt it was pretty good right out of the box. These guys were working on this. This is a 4-year development project here, so they've done a good job. You know, that long, you know, working with the motion systems, and you know, I'm sure that they figured it out because it does feel pretty darn good. All right, so that's all we can do here as far as, you know, changing things and tweaking things. Again, I was always on this one. If I was going to do anything, I didn't really care too much about that because I was satisfied with what I was getting over here in the simplified GUI, if you will. Right, so we can go over here and click on this again to get rid of that configuration. Again, all these configurations we can save and load anytime we want. And I'm going to go over here to Tools and Diagnostics real quick just to show you some other cool things that we can do here. First, we can actually click on Devices, and it will show us the devices currently the software can see and recognize. We have the motion platform, device 1, and that's the version 3.0A, and what that did is the V3 seat mover. Then we have the Traction Plus, obviously. On the bottom here, Traction Plus motion platform. And you can see it gives us work time, things like that. Look at the work time on this. It's almost 400 hours on this unit, and it's still working just as smooth, and like I said, it feels like a new one to me. It just feels really good. But remember, this was, as I said before in the review, they actually had this as a demo unit at the E3 gaming convention this year in California. So yeah, they put a lot of hours and a lot of time on it there, no doubt. And probably, obviously, before they took it out there, they tested extensively to make sure it was going to work when it got there. Total work days is 9 continuous days up. And yeah, uptime currently is 4 hours, 10 minutes. And they match up here. You can go back and forth because I turned it on 4 hours ago and was doing some videotaping and running and things like that. And of course, we can do some other things here for configuration level calibration, and we won't get into that. That's just tweaking stuff and doing diagnostics and things like that. So we'll close that one. We also have a cool thing called the, where did that go? Platform diagnostics. I think that's what I wanted. Yeah. And this is a cool, I'm going to drag this up here for you guys. This actually shows us a lot of stuff. And this is really where you would be doing troubleshooting, I think, and, you know, logging, turning your logs on in case there was something going on. And you can watch this in real time. We got motor speed over here on the left, and that's for each motor 1 through 6, because we have 4 motors in the Traction Plus platform. We've got 2 in the seat mover, the V3, so a total of 6, obviously. And it gives us motor positions and left-right movement in real time when it's going back and forth. So a lot of information down here that we can garner rather, to give the guys if we're trying to troubleshoot something, or if they're trying to troubleshoot something, or tweak something for that matter. And we got different tabs that we can play with here. Motion recorder, and this will actually log everything, and you can tell it where you want that log sent to. And this is forward kinematics, and we got roll acceleration. This will tell us what the roll acceleration, pitch, yaw, heave, sway, and surge accelerations are, and speeds and degrees. So this will be helpful. You can actually go in and tweak it with the, like we saw before in those post-processing settings, and come back in here and see what you're doing. Again, I'm not going to get into any of that stuff because I just don't have time to dig that deep. Right. So it's very cool stuff we have here, and we have some other things here. We also have a cool VR integration, if you guys didn't see that the first time around. It's a proxy driver. It's not installed on this because I'm not using VR, but it's a proxy driver that helps with the VR and your movement at the same time. I haven't done anything with this, but it's nice to know that it's actually a feature that Next Level Racing is supporting. The VR guys out there, there's not enough support for that out there. Just ask any VR guy, they'll tell you. Right, so really that's about it as far as, you know, the important stuff that we want to do here. Yeah, the main thing is that we're going to be in these profiles, doing our configurations there, and again, saving them for whatever track and whatever game, just like any other kind of configuration software that we run for different devices in sim racing in general. So that's going to be it for this, and what we'll do next is just get in, start driving. I'm going to have multiple angles or double angles here and talk about what's happening in oversteer, understeer conditions, and you can watch the modules moving independently of each other. And I'll talk a little bit about what I'm feeling when that happens. And you know, when you're looking at this and it's moving, it's not as intuitive to the eye, and you would think that, what the heck is it doing? That's not, it shouldn't be doing that. That's got to feel weird. But they've been working on the software a long time, and it's been calibrated and tested, and it works great. It really does. And again, let's just talk a little bit about that in the next section when we're driving. So here we are in Assetto Corsa. We are in the Nissan Skyline GTR R34, and this is the Highlands Drift track. So anyway, I thought this was a good track to go ahead and try to feel what this system is capable of. And you can see it moving, how it's moving here. And I've got this, it's not at convention levels as far as movement. I've got it turned down a bit because less tends to be more here in these kind of things once you're actually concentrating and trying to feel exactly what the car is doing and reacting to it. So real sway we have here, and of course real yaw. We've got a good amount of sway. And I've never had that before, and it's a bit of an eye-opener for me, but it is brand new feeling for me, so I might be a little bit over-enthusiastic about it, but I must say it's something that you should try if you ever get a chance. Right, so we're going to go through a curve up here, not this one. This is the one that's setting us up, and we're going to go up the hill and get into a curve, and we're going to get into an oversteer condition, or rather understeer condition at first, and then go into some snap oversteer and see how this chassis actually reacts. So watch this, because it happens pretty quick. First we go into understeer rather, sorry, pushing. Push, and then I'll slow it down just enough to finally start rotating, then I'll go snap, left, right, and then it'll come back to the left. Right, and of course, I was putting countersteer in there. But now we're going to do a bit of analysis here, or an analysis session. I'm going to use frame by frame in my video editor to better show you and try to explain what's going on here. All right, so we're entering the turn here, and you can see I'm going to start turning the steering wheel, and the chassis is going to start reacting to that. Now, the rear one's going to move first. Now watch that. See how the rear one's moving first before the front one does as I'm turning the wheel? This tells me, or indicates to me anyway, that suspension on this car is a little bit softer in the rear than the front, because as the weight starts to transfer over to the left side as I turn it, the rear is weighting up just a bit before the front is. And the front's going to follow suit here real quick. And there you go, starting it right there. And it's starting to move too. Then we're going to get locked into where they both move at the same time. And this is the feeling of full weight transfer to the outside of the turn as we're turning. And of course, the wheel is being turned even more. Now you watch, both of them will move at the same time when I get there. You can see how I'm turning hard here, trying to get the car to turn, but it won't. So I have an understeer condition here, obviously, and I'm sliding to the left. And yeah, you really feel it with those modules moving like that. And I'm actually, you can see my foot here is starting to come off the throttle pedal, and that's trying to get it to turn, obviously. I want to slow down so the thing will start getting some grip and turn for me. So I get off, but I'm also trying to get an oversteer because I'm trying to test this and trying to initiate different types of situations for the weight transfer in the suspension here. And you'll see me come off here, and I'm still turning though right here. See, I'm still turning, even though I got my foot off the accelerator, trying to slow it down and get this thing to turn. Of course, normally if you're just doing this in real time, you're thinking, come on, turn, and it won't turn. So now I'm going to keep turning. You can see I'm locking, I'm going to just lock those wheels. I'm just not getting any grip on the front. It's just pushing out pretty bad here. And I'm also going to get back into the throttle because I sense I'm starting to slow down a little bit. And again, I'm trying to get into a snap oversteer. So I'm going to get back into the throttle, and you can see the front end is actually going to start moving here. See that front pod moving? And then the rear is going to move a little bit too. Again, this gives me that sense of the front end just washing out and pushing. So I'm coming back off the throttle because of what I'm feeling there. And then I'm going to probably try to get back on the throttle to get it to come into an oversteer once I can get this thing slowed down and get it to rotate. And I'm going to use a little brake pedal too. You can see my brake foot moving there to try to tap it and get it to change and get that rear end to come loose and get the front end to turn. So I'm trying that, and that's not working too well. We're just basically sliding around the turn right here. And I can start to see the front. Actually, I know where this turn is actually going to start straightening out. So I'm kind of moving the wheel back the other way a little bit. Just in those couple of frames, you saw me move it come up just a little bit. and still nothing happening because you saw no suspension movement over on the left side where we're watching the modules. And yeah, we're just sliding around. And again, I tighten it up again. I tighten up the steering, trying to get it to turn, or at least to get an oversteer. That's really what I'm trying to do, is get this rear end to step out. But it's such a soft suspension, it's just not working. I'm not going slow enough for it to catch. Now I will in a minute here, or a few more frames here, as we're coming around the turn. Now I can feel in the steering wheel. Well, I don't know if I can feel it in the steering wheel, but let's go back a few frames there. I'm starting to, it's a visual thing now, totally visual, where I made that shift in the steering wheel. I was trying to figure out why I changed what I was doing with the wheel, but I didn't change it that much. It just looked like it to me. All right, I'm still pretty much in the same position, so is the suspension. But now, notice how the rear module is starting to move to the left. Because now I'm getting slow enough, and you can see I'm obviously heading to the straight now, but I still have the throttle all the way down, but I'm slow enough now the rear end's starting to come around. It's going to snap to the left in an oversteer. And that's why that rear left module is starting to move. See it moving? Now I feel this, and you can see as I'm feeling this, my steering input is already changing because I felt that module move. And I felt the rear start to move to the left side. Now, because we've got this rear module it's pretty much all the way over, and so is the front. From looking at it, that's what I'm guessing here, assuming. And you can see the quick inputs of my steering wheel. I'm going to whip this thing, and then remember, this is frame by frame, so I'm turning it pretty quick here. And then you're going to see, let me get it. Okay, watch that front module. This is what I want you to pay attention to. Watch that front module as I'm counter steering it, because I feel that rear end coming around, but you can see the rear is not moving. The rear module is not moving any more to the left. It's the front module that's moving to the right that's causing this feeling of where I'm throwing that counter steering in. See? It's brilliant, really, the way this works. The rear doesn't have to come over to the left any more than it has, and it might even be at its limits. I don't know. But now the front end module, or the front module, can move to the right and simulate the rear module rather, moving to the left. Now, of course, I'm not paying attention to what these modules are doing. I'm paying attention to what's happening on the screens in front of me and what I'm feeling in the steering wheel, and reacting accordingly with my pedal inputs and steering wheel inputs. And of course, this is a direct drive steering wheel, so it's letting me know what's going on too. So it's very cool the way this thing, look at that, just comes all the way to the front like that, or to the right rather, to simulate that, and made me, let's back that up real quick, made me put in that steering. Because I know, my first indication was, let's go back here to this one, the left, or rather the rear module moved to the left just enough to feel the weight transfer start. And as soon as I feel that, I'm already, here I'm going to start my counter steer. And because I'm counter steering, the rear end is still, I haven't caught it yet, obviously. Now we're getting ready to get into that snap oversteer, and that front module moves over. See it move? And that is, it feels like you're actually still, the rear end is still coming around. And you can see the angle, if you look in the video, look at the white lines there, you can see the angle's changing. See how it's changing? Along with the movement of the front module. So that means I'm still rotating, from all I know, I'm still rotating, and that rear module is still swinging out to the left. That's all I know at this point. So I'm still putting in my counter steer, see? It's brilliant. It works so well. And now we're getting into, I'm catching the slide, and of course once you catch the slide, you got to come back off your counter steering input and try to get it to go straight. But in this case, I'm just kind of flopping around like a fish because I got the throttle nailed, and I'm just trying to make this thing do what it's doing. And so we'll start going. Now the rear end, you see the rear module starting to move now, coming back to the right, because now the weight transfer, because I'm turning the wheel and getting it to transfer, the weight's starting to transfer the other way, I'm to the right. I don't want to hit the fence, so I'm going to put counter steering in the wheel again and turn the wheel to the right to catch that, because I know once I've stopped the oversteer, the oversteer, snap oversteer there, I'm going to get snap oversteer going the other way if I don't catch it in time, right? So that's what I'm doing here. Now I'm catching it. And of course, the weight is transferring again with the rear module rather, moving right. And now you see the front one caught it right there, caught up with it, and watch this, all the way, how fast this moves over. So that weight transfer and me sliding to the other side of the road. Look at that. And I'm coming over to the white line. But now, again, it's going to try to snap oversteer on me as I come around. And you can see I can feel that. So now I'm naturally going to come back with the wheel and put in counter steer. But now because they still have a lot of room left on the rear module, they're going to move that to the right to simulate the rear end stepping out to the right. There it is. And of course, the front can move a little bit to accentuate that step out feel. But now I've got my counter input in the steering, and I'm catching it right there. And we're going to actually still slide a little bit. See, the angle's still going, and I'm still putting input in. But I'm going to catch. It's going to catch right about here. That's why I'm stopping my input. And then I'm going to straighten it back out. And as I straighten it back out, you can see the modules start to line back up. And I'm still wiggly here, obviously, because of this quick snap oversteer left, snap oversteer right, and I'm correcting for that. There's a lot of movement going on in the suspension here, and it's going to take a few frames for that to straighten out as I finally get going straight again. You can see there, right? So now we're straightening up and getting ready to go back down the road, and there we go. All right. So I thought that would be a good way. I hope I explained that well enough for you guys to understand what's going on. What's the coolest thing here is how when I first saw that front module moving in the direction I don't think it should be moving, actually made me think, well, how's this thing working? But it feels like, and it feels like the rear is still moving because of what you're visually getting as far as the input from the screens and what you're feeling in the steering wheel, even though the module's actually moving in the opposite direction on the front. That causes that feeling to continue on. So you don't run out of yaw. Let me put it, I guess that's a good way to put it. Typically, you'll run out of yaw and only get a certain amount of travel of yaw in any kind of yaw system. This actually can slide all the way over and then slide the front the opposite direction to continue that yaw movement. It's very natural feeling. It's just a very analog feeling that it keeps going. And you could see that I was actually able to maintain control of the car with really being on the throttle the whole time, and this thing snapping around a little bit on me. Just from the feel and the visual inputs I was getting, the feel from this Traction Plus platform, the way these modules are moving, and of course what I'm feeling in the direct drive force feedback in the wheel itself as I'm actually turning the left and right and putting in counter moves with the steering wheel. So now we're going to go over to Spa, and in the Ferrari SF70H F1 car. And I wanted to go from one extreme to another with the soft suspension on that Nissan to this F1 car, which is a very, very tight suspension, and see what kind of movement we get out of that kind of car as far as weight transfers. So here we go, and this is a great place right here, and you can see the shift you're getting. Look at the weight, the weight shift you get off of that, or the weight transfer from the left side, and then it goes to the right side. Very cool. It feels, very much like you're, for the moment there, obviously it doesn't last very long, pulling some G's with that weight transfer going from over to the left and then back over to the right. And going through the turns, we're not going to see as much movement as we saw in the Nissan, obviously, because it's not a sloppy suspension, so the suspension is very tight. But what we're seeing the movement's doing now is giving us that sense of G-force and weight transfer in the sway and yaw directions. So this really works out quite well. You can feel what the car is doing quite well. Again, the way this thing moves, it's very intuitive. It makes you feel that you know exactly what the car is doing, what the chassis is doing when you're going from side to side and you get the weight transfer from the left to the right. And it works seamlessly. You don't even realize it's there, but you just feel like you're sitting in the car like never before, really, for me anyway. And feeling what's going on when you're going around these corners much better than any system I've been in. And I pretty much expected that once I'd gotten through the initial sessions with it. So yeah, I wanted to come over here and try a nice tight suspension like this F1 car and see how it does. And you can see there's not a lot of movement because of, it's a very tight suspension. When the weight transfers, it doesn't do a whole lot. Like when I'm slow like this, you can see it coming around. Yeah, and remember, we've also got it set 20 kilometers an hour. We don't have as much transfer because you shouldn't have that much transfer if you're going at slower speed. So it kind of works out to where it feels analogish, I guess is a good word, just a natural feel for it. And I always invite some fellow sim racers who are local to me to come over and try new things like this. And yeah, everyone had a great time. The general reaction was wow, and this is pretty crazy. Because like me, no one's ever been in a proper sway cockpit, the motion cockpit that actually had a proper sway to it. And of course the yaw is very good here too, as you might imagine. And of course, we have to do at least one video segment of us starting in Assetto Corsa with a mixed group of GT cars. And just, I wanted to test how it felt with the sway and the yaw that this Traction Plus platform is capable of delivering. And yeah, when we get down in here and getting snuggy with everybody, nice and friendly, just, you know, rubbing a little paint here. Oops, little shot from the back. Yeah, this is, you can see what the platform's doing when you get into that, and you get a little bit of sideways tapping going on. And I actually did a whole race, and it was pretty interesting that when someone would actually get into the side of you, you could feel that the sway react to that. And yeah, just another element, you know, of immersion as far as when we're in a car and actually racing amongst other cars. So right, that'll be it for the driving segment, and of course the analysis. I hope you guys were able to understand what I was trying to convey there as far as what was happening when we were getting the movements. And yeah, so what we'll do is just, yeah, let's get to the final thoughts. Final thoughts on the Traction Plus platform from the guys at Next Level Racing. The first thing you notice about the unit is the heft and solid commercial level build quality. Manufactured by Motion Systems, which is an established builder of motion solution systems. Everywhere I looked, I could see that the Traction Plus platform was built to last and take some abuse. Thick 4mm steel plate is used throughout this build. A testament to this is the 101 pounds that each of these modules weigh, and you certainly will need a friend to properly handle these motion units. Now, the parts used in the mechanical sections of the Traction Plus also look to be of very good quality, with solid engineering theory like the heavy-duty chromed rails to guide the multiple pulleys used to maneuver the motion sections, and adding a nice sealed bearing configuration to help those pulleys track straight, which of course will reduce wear in those areas. The use of cogged tooth belts and gears to move the modules creates a smooth and relatively quiet ride. I like the way that there are access panels in all the right places to ensure that the owner will be able to properly maintain and even execute repair if needed. I could see that if you ever needed to replace a belt, it would be something that most could do without too much problem. Now, the software package that they're using here is one that is pretty easy and intuitive to use for tuning controls and making changes. And the addition of the motion post-processing section will give the owners who love to tweak settings plenty to play with, I think. Of course, the real magic here happens when driving the Traction Plus platform. Now, I had a motion platform with a yaw element for a few years, which operated like most we see today, using a static pivot point on the front of the chassis and moving the rear of the chassis to induce the yaw feeling. The Traction Plus unit uses a different take on this, using a front and rear module that can move in a lateral direction independent of each other, which not only does yaw, but also gives us a sway element that is quite convincing. If you have never been in a motion cockpit that has a real sway function, you are in for a treat. The feel of a car's chassis as it enters, apexes, and exits a turn has never been more immersive to me. You can feel the car's weight transfer from side to side as it loads and unloads the suspension. The yaw and sway elements work seamlessly together to give you a motion experience that you have to feel for yourself to fully understand the impact it has on immersion. I actually turned down the V3 seat movers pitch and roll to very low levels, especially the roll element, as the Traction Plus unit made roll less relevant. Its convincing yaw and sway movements kind of nulled it out a little bit. From what I've seen and felt so far, the Traction Plus platform, I think I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it for someone that is looking to add very immersive yaw and sway element to their cockpit. It is certainly built to commercial use and standards. With around 400 hours of use in mostly a convention environment, this unit is still going strong with no issues that I could detect. It comes with a 2-year warranty for home use and a 1-year warranty for commercial use, which says that the manufacturer of this unit has high confidence in the durability of the Traction Plus platform. But all is not perfect here. Next Level Racing only had a profile for Assetto Corsa that was ready for use at the time of this review. And I was told, though, that the profile for iRacing would be released soon, with others to follow. Also, the stated weight limit of 518 pounds or 235 kilos, you will have to put some effort into meeting the limit when you're planning to mount your own cockpit to this unit, which I'm sure some of you are already thinking about while watching this review. I know I am. Now, I'm sure that there will be a lot of "it costs too much" comments about the Traction Plus platform, and at $6,000, I would readily agree that it is expensive. However, if you consider who manufactures this unit, the build quality that was used here, and especially the added level of immersion it is capable of bringing to an existing cockpit, whether it already has a motion element or not, I think that those who have the means to purchase the Traction Plus platform will be able to see some value here. I'm Barry Rowland. Thanks again for watching the SimRacing Garage channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and if you would like to help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.